Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to introduce everyone in a few minutes, but first I'm going to introduce Tom Goldtooth, who is Dene and Dakota, and is the Executive Director of the Indigenous Environmental Network, an Executive Committee member of the Alliance of Mother Nature's Guardians, and a member of the Global Alliance of the Rights of Nature, who's going to open up this space for us. Tom, over to you.
Thank you. I'm very appreciative and thankful to have been asked to offer some words to petition, and I'm going to use that word petition, the spirit, petition our minds, what we're thinking, our hearts, petition the Almighty, the Holy, the Great Spirit that oversees not only this world, the planet, but the universe. And I want to establish some understanding as I'm talking here, is that from my experience, when we bring indigenous peoples together, like we have here, my brothers and sisters who are here to share their knowledge. In the hallways of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, this is the 26th year of the world leaders coming together, the Conference of the Parties. And there is a new event taking place on the inside. And they have incorporated, they have institutionalized a process of how we as indigenous peoples of the world directly engage with the governments of the world. On one hand, in the domain of the sacredness of who we are and the sacredness of our knowledge that we share, it can go to the good or it can go to the worst. The challenge is the world that has no understanding of what we are talking about can utilize our knowledge in, I could say, a Eurocentric way in their institutionalization system. But we come from a different world. Our reality is linked directly to the earth, to the soil, to the trees, to the grasses, to the marshes, the wetlands, the mangroves, to the oceans. We come from that reality. So I know some of the indigenous peoples who are on the inside right now. They are doing everything they can to be conscious on what I just shared with you. This is where we need your support, our allies, to hold your governments accountable, not to abuse the knowledge that we are sharing. And I do look forward to listening to my brothers and sisters who are here to talk about the movements and the organizations that we are engaged in, like the Alliance of the Guardians of Nature. And those of us that are engaged with organizing from an indigenous base and foundation, as we as indigenous engage with allies from Europe, from the UK, all over the world. So we always attempt to be principled on how we share our knowledge. There's no separation between our knowledge and our spirituality, our cosmovision. So in honor of this request for me to open up, I wanted to give some, how do you say, context for this opportunity. And I thank everyone here that we're able to put this together. I want to explain what is here for you, for us. Before you came in, I set up an altar. This came to me in a dream just a couple days ago. My brother Nanawa saw this altar go up in another presentation. So what this is bringing in the energy, is bringing in the spirits of the four directions of the Mother Earth, the four winds of the Mother Earth. And in our way, where I come from North America, if you ever fly like an eagle and look down Alaska, look down Canada, look down the United States, even into Mexico. Some of our people, like the Six Nations, the Iroquois Confederacy, they call this whole land the turtle, because they said there's a head, there's the legs and the tail and the body. So we come from what some of our indigenous peoples call Turtle Island of the North. And I am here with my brothers and sisters from the south of the Americas. My brother from Mexico is part of that tail of Mexico, of the Turtle Island. So where I come from, we use tobacco. So there's a tobacco presentation on each of these colors. These colors represent the four directions. In many of our indigenous peoples, we all have our different colors. There's no one way of our altars. We use different colors. This staff here, my brother has, I notice it has the color black in there. So there are different colors. And so the water of life is symbolized right there in a glass. In our ceremonies, we always think about the water, because we also have water in our body. We are water. Some of you may have remembered in 2016 when we came together in North Dakota to stop a pipeline called the Dakota Access Pipeline. The world became familiar with that battle, with that defense in protection of nature, protection of the river and life. We were concerned that any leak in that pipeline will be an act of ecocide. It will be an act of genocide. It will be a crime against humanity. That's what our concern is. So what we have here is that water of life, mini wichoni. Water of life, mini wichoni. That teaches us back home in our teachings. The women are the givers of life. And there's a long story of mini wichoni. I don't have the full time. I would have to stand here 4 days to share the teachings of that water. But in simplicity, but in the complex of life, when the baby is ready to come into this world, to take its first breath, like that, its first breath of air, the woman passes the water. The water passing is telling us life is coming. So that mini wachoni is that connection to the woman and the passing of the water when she's ready to give birth. It's a very sacred, very holy moment. I cannot even translate that into English of the significance of our tie as indigenous peoples to our mother, our grandmother Earth. We are not separated, she is one and the same. The umbilical cord that's connected to our mother, and the invisible umbilical cord that comes from our grandmothers, our aunties, our mothers to Mother Earth, forever present. So when we speak, we come with that knowledge. So this is an altar to have blessings to this moment as bringing in the spirits and that water of life. And when we blow our whistle, that connects with the air that we breathe. That's our link between the earth and the sky. Eyoko. Unchimaka, unka, wakantakia, machpiatakia. Eyoko. That expression is between heaven and earth, in that connection. I'm going to sing a song. And they say this song I'm going to sing is thousands of years old. My grandpa taught me this song. And it recognizes what I talked about. It recognizes the tobacco that we smoke in our instrument, sacred instrument called chanduhupa, our pipe. It represents also in recognition the eagle nation that flies, that carries our prayers to the Great Spirit. Our brothers from the mountain regions of South America, the Andes, have the Condor. But also I come from an area where is the cougar, the cat. So also we have a relationship to the Amazon, the jaguar, and the higher elevation is the condor. And the turtle, of course, north and south, and the turtle in the oceans. So bear along with me. Wakanta ya ya hota ya kia huedo hey hey hey. Wakanta ya 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 hota ya kia huedo hey hey hey. Wambadi hadeshka oyate wakanta ya hota ya kia uedo hey wakaya ya kia uedo hey Wakanta ya 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 hota ya kia wedo hey 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 Wakanta ya ya hota ya kia wedo hey hey Wambadi hadeshka oyate hey Wakanta ya kia uedo hey 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 Wakaya ya kia uedo hey hey hoy hoy Yxapyry chashta hota iya kiya uwelo hey ya hey hey ya hey yo hey hey hey. Wan bliklishka oyate hey wan wakanta ya kiya uwelo hey hey hey. Wakaya kauta iya kiya uwelo hey 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 yo yo yo. Way ya hey 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 ya way ya hey 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 yo. Way ya hey 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 ya way yo hey ya hey hey ya way yo hey 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 way ya hey 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 yo way yo hey hey ya way yo hey 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 way yo 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 hey hey ya way yo hey 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 ho yo yo. Wakata ya 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 hota iya kiya uwelo hey hey hey. Wakata ya 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 hota iya kiya uwelo hey hey hey. Wan bliklishka oyate hey wan wakata ya ya hota iya kiya uwelo hey hey hey. Wakaya ya kiya uwelo hey hey hey. Yxapyry chasha chanupa hey ya kipiya ho ye ya yo hey hey. Wan bliklishka oyate hey wan wakata ya kiya uwelo hey hey. Wakaya ya kiya uwelo hey hey yo. The eagle from our people is here. That's what they said. The spotted eagle is here to witness what we are doing and to bless what we are doing. So we are of the eagle clan, where I come from. My grandpa Pitaha Yuhamani, Pete Katcha Sr., I always think of him. He was an eagle man, holy man, medicine man. So we are the Spotted Eagle clan. Our Sundance, our ceremony, these are our colors. So the tobacco is here. It has been accepted by the Great Spirit. It has been accepted by the Grandmother Earth and the spirits of the four directions to bless what you have doing here and our brothers and sisters, to bless what you're going to say. So the most holy of our ways, the Great Spirit, the Great Mystery, has witnessed what we are doing, and it will be here. So I appreciate, and the Wambadi Wiyaka, these are the northern eagle feathers. I recognize them. So thank you very much. We always remember the water of life. We're going to keep this up throughout the day, and when we go, I'll take it with me and put it away. Thank you very much. Haumitakie o asi.
You know I don't know how to follow that, right? So, I am Jessica Swayden, and I have the absolute pleasure and honor of moderating this panel today. I tend to be somebody who flies between lots of different worlds. I live in between the spaces. I've been over, so for me, since I've been here, I've been in the Blue Zone. I've hosted high-level discussions. I've had a huge, I've been a part of a conference around philanthropy. I've been talking to a lot of youth. I've been spending a huge amount of time with Indigenous people listening. And I don't know about all of you, but everyone I'm coming into touch with is relatively exhausted. They're not feeling nourished. And then I think about the spaces that these big negotiations are taking place in, and they're not being held. So many of them are not being held with this intentional space. And you wonder why we struggle with some of these complex decisions that need to be made. And you wonder why and how we're going to move from where we are into the better version of ourselves. And then I think about these people who are here today and this interesting discussion that we're going to have, which is taking the ideas of sacred natural law, listening to guardians of the forest and guardians from across the world who have ideas about how we can reconnect to the natural world, and in fact, that we're not separate from. And thinking about Ecocide as a way, as something, as a new addition to our Western lexicon that can be a bridge for us to move forward, that can traverse the spaces between the sacred and the necessary. Because we have to move from here, and we need tools. We need tools that we can respect and that can help us go forward. And for me, that's what Ecocide represents, the law of Ecocide. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more from everyone. And with that, I want to just now finally introduce everyone else that's sitting here on this stage with me so that we can move forward. And then we're going to hear from everybody, and then hopefully have some time for a discussion. So to Tom's right, we have Mindahi Bastida, who is the Director of Original Nations Program at the Fountain, the member of the Mother Earth Delegation, an executive member of the Alliance of Mother Earth's Guardians, and a spokesperson of the Grand Council of the Eagle and the Condor. To Tom's left is Chief Nanawa, General Chief of the Hunikui people of the Brazilian Amazon, President of the Huniqueen Federation of the State of Acre in Brazil, International Ambassador of his people, and a member of the Alliance of Mother Nature's Guardians. And here we have Chief Vera Papagua, Mbya, Guarani Indigenous Chief, and a coordinator of the Guarani Yvyrupa Commission from the Parada State in the Atlantic Forest. And next to me is the beautiful Juma Yxapyry, an indigenous leader belonging to the Yxapyry people, an activist, a medical student at the Federal University of Para in Brazil, director of the Association of Indigenous Students, and founder of the Juma Institute. On the other side of Mindahi, we have Gert Peter Bruch, founder and president of Planet Amazon, executive committee member of the Alliance of Mother Nature's Guardians, and a film director. And then finally, on the other side, with two other beautiful women, we have Princess Esmeralda of Belgium, who's a journalist, an author, and an activist, the president of the King Leopold III Fund for Nature Exploration and Conservation. I think we need more conversation. And the chair of Friendship Belgium. And then, of course, our outstanding hostess, Jojo Mehta, the co-founder and executive director of Stop Ecocide International. She's the chair of Stop Ecocide Foundation and convener of the independent expert panel for the legal definition of ecocide, chaired by Philippe Sands QC and Dior Fall Sao. So, we need all day. We have a few hours and we ran late, but hopefully we can bend time, which is very possible given the people that are in this room. It would be my pleasure to please invite Mindahi, I think, or Chief Nanawa. Who wants to go first? Mindahi? From the Sacred Guardians, to speak to us a little bit about the framing, his vision for the Sacred Guardians, and whatever you want to tell us. Thank you.
Kamade, Hatsikwada Hatsiku, with the permission of this gathering and this beautiful territory, and acknowledging the presence of Grandmother Helen of the Sami peoples and from these lands, Europe. And also our elders here, Tom, Waltooth, and Chief Nanawa, and all of you precious people from the Amazon and from other territories around the world. Let me tell you that we have come here to this COP, and we have participated in many other international gatherings, because we saw that it was a time to come and be present. Because this is not just a climate change, it's a climate crisis and ecological crisis. So for many years, we have felt that in our territories. We have seen how the rivers have been polluted, the sky has been polluted, we call Father Sky, and also the underground is also being polluted. But the roots of this pollution is the misbehavior of human beings. But not all of us, but we are in the way of being all of us. It's been mainly because greed taking over instead of taking care of life. We believe in our teachings that we came to this world for a purpose. And the purpose is to take care of life, give care of life. But we are not doing this. And it's just not 500 years of resistance, of colonization in the Americas. It's more than that. This process began at least 7 millennia ago. Some people began to take over instead of respecting each other. And we forgot our original instructions. One of the original instructions is principle is to reciprocity. And when you don't carry out reciprocity, is when the problems begin. And we need to take care about concepts, categories that we use. Because as you can see, the water that is here is a living being. It's an entity. It's a sacred element. It's not a resource. But when we go to the universities, we are taught there is a natural resource. Even us, we are taken into consideration as a human resources. We don't agree. We are not resources. So this is the anthropocentric way of thinking. And it began with colonization, many, many centuries ago. And colonization is killing Mother Earth. This way of thinking, because it's the individual way of thinking. So we bring to this COP the consciousness of being from the I to the we, from the me to the we. Because us, as original nations in the world, we have the big opportunity to come together with you. We cannot do it alone, but you cannot do it alone. You need us and we need you. Because if one color in the rainbow is lacking, there is no rainbow. So this is the time, and the time is now to act together. If your person, your institution is not in the path of taking care and giving care of life, you must change or disappear. So this is the time to stop ecocide, stop the killing of people and nature and Father Sky. This is the time, and time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindahi. Please forgive me, I forgot to introduce our translators, who are, in their own right, also just absolutely exceptional human beings. Behind me here we have Marcelo Salazar, who's the Executive Coordinator of Health and Harmony Brazil, Council Member of Instituto Socioambiental. He lives in Altamira on the banks of the Xingu River, and we are so honored to have you here because you could easily be up front with us as well. And then Graciela Souza, who is a fabulous colleague of mine who works at Synchronicity Earth and Gaia and in between all the worlds alongside of us. So thank you both. Sorry for forgetting to do that before. Now I'd like to hand over to Chief Nanawa to speak for a few minutes. Thank you.
Muito bom dia a todos e a todas. Quero agradecer imensamente pelo convite em nome do meu povo. O meu nome é Nanawa, eu sou Runicuim, sou liderança do meu povo, sou do estado do Acre, da região amazônica no Brasil.
I want to thank you everybody to be here. Hello. I want to thank you all to be here. It's an honor. I want to thank you, the organizers of this event. I came from Acre, the state of Acre in the Amazon rainforest, and I'm the chief of my people.
E o que eu gostaria de poder estar compartilhando aqui com cada um dos senhores e senhoras que vieram nos ouvir é um pouco do que nós, como representa esse conceito para nós de ecocídio e os impactos que nós estamos vivendo na atualidade.
I would like to share with you all how it represents to us this concept of ecocide and how it is related to our reality.
Bom, nós sempre temos feito reflexões dentro do nosso povo e temos visto o quanto de mudança tem acontecido na nossa história. E uma dessas mudanças são as terminologias técnicas que são utilizadas.
We are doing some reflections among our people, and we see how the technologies are changing our world.
Como, por exemplo, essa terminologia do ecocídio que representa muitas coisas, mas isso para nós, não um conceito, mas uma realidade dentro de nossas comunidades, é realmente um assassinato que estão fazendo com a Mãe Natureza, que estão fazendo conosco. Isso para nós é o que representa nesse conceito de ecocídio.
How, for example, the ecocide that represents many things, represents the murder of us, the murder of our people and our nature.
A Amazônia Legal, da onde a Amazônia brasileira faz parte, está sendo destruída. E nós temos que estar muito claro quem são os nossos inimigos em que estão destruindo a natureza.
The Pan-Amazonian rainforest, where the Brazilian Amazon rainforest belongs, is being destroyed, and we must to be very aware who are our enemies that are destroying our environmental.
E que está muito claro para nós que o inimigo e quem realmente está destruindo a natureza são termologias também, como, por exemplo, o capital em grande escala, o desenvolvimento que se tem dentro do sistema governamental, em que tem como meta alcançar esses desenvolvimentos.
It's clear the enemy destroying the nature are technologies, like the technologies related to the money, to the capital, to this model of development.
Uma outra termologia que às vezes confunde o meu povo é, por exemplo, chamar todo esse crime, todo esse assassinato que é feito com a natureza de crise climática.
Another thing that confuses my people is to call all these technologies that are destroying the nature as climate crisis.
A natureza não passa por crime, por crise. A natureza vive um crime todos os dias. Todos os dias estão destruindo, estão cometendo crime contra a natureza.
The nature is not in a crisis. The nature are under threat. Every day, someone is threatening the nature, are committing crimes against nature.
E para poder fazer isso, hoje no Brasil, tem um ataque sistematizado dentro do Congresso Nacional, que estão aprovando projetos de leis para retirar os nossos direitos sobre o nosso território sagrado, para entregar para essas empresas predatórias que falam muito da economia e do desenvolvimento.
In our country, the government is working to get out our rights and give to the companies that are promoting this kind of development that not supports us and the nature.
Então, muitos de nossos irmãos estão também discutindo estratégias como uma maneira de combater todo esse crime. E nós temos várias experiências de povos que estamos tentando levar ao cenário internacional o debate sobre os territórios como sujeitos de direito.
Many of us, indigenous communities, are discussing how to face this crisis, how to face the ecocide, and we are discussing with international communities how to fight against the ecocide.
Mesmo a gente sabendo que as leis hoje, em sua maioria, não são cumpridas, mesmo os acordos internacionais que são feitos não são cumpridos, mas a gente tenta ajudar a recuperar aquilo que nós não destruímos.
Even though the national laws are not accomplished, even though the international agreements is not accomplished by our government and companies, we are trying to fight against it.
Quando nós falamos que nós somos verdadeiros guardiões, é porque nós temos isso comprovadamente na luta do dia a dia do nosso povo. Quantos de nossos líderes foram assassinados, foram tombados por defender o seu território, e essas pessoas que cometem esse crime ficam impunes?
How many of our leaders are being threatened, are being murdered to be in front of this fight. Sorry, I lost a little bit.
Essas pessoas que cometem esses crimes, eles ficam impunes. E nós só temos uma maneira, e eu estou sempre dizendo, uma maneira de proteger esses territórios. É fazer com que esses territórios eles sejam devolvidos para nós, os nossos espaços sagrados, de onde nos expulsaram, massacraram nosso antepassado. É uma maneira e uma maneira real de resolver o problema climático. É demarcar os nossos territórios, devolver para nós esses territórios que é tão importante. Muitíssimo obrigado por esses 5 minutos. E dizer que nós, enquanto guardiões dessas florestas, vamos seguir lutando, vamos seguir sonhando, acreditando que ainda há esperança nessa vida. Rauch.
There is one way of this fight that is give back the territory to the traditional communities, to the indigenous communities. So we need to fight for the demarcation of indigenous territories. And this is the way to protect the nature, to protect the indigenous people, and to face the ecocide. And he thanks a lot for this space to talk about it.
Thank you. I think since we're already in flow with Ecocide, I'm going to turn over to Chief Vera Papagua to speak about his experiences, maybe tell us a little bit about his story, which is incredible, and then we'll move on. Thank you.
Alô. Bom dia a todos, a todas. Primeiramente, eu quero agradecer, ser a voz do meu povo Guarani, que eles me escolheram para vir até aqui para trazer a voz deles.
I would like to thanks to my people, the Guarani people, to be here and represent them and bring here their voice.
Meu nome é Vera Papagua, sou do povo indígena Guarani. Eu sou cacique da Tecoa Quaragachá, Mata Atlântico, região sul do Brasil.
My name is Vera. I'm from the Guarani people, and I'm chief of Tehoaquaira, Ixá, and the Atlantic Forest in the south of Brazil.
Também eu sou aqui representando outros 85 mil Guarani que habitam a cerca de 153 terras indígenas entre demarcada e outros em processo de demarcação. Faço parte da Comissão Guarani Yvyrupa, que é uma organização do povo Guarani do Brasil.
I'm here as well representing 85,000 people of the Guarani people in Brazil, from many areas, some of them demarcated, and he is chief of the organization of Guarani in Brazil.
Quando meu povo fala proteção dos direitos dos indígenas, estamos falando como guardiões das matas, da terra, das águas. As mulheres são os guardiões da semente, nós homens somos guardiões da floresta.
So when I speak, I'm speak about the women that are the guardians of the seeds, and in behalf of the men, which are the guardians of the forest.
Se existe mancha verde na Mata Atlântica preservado, na região sul e sudeste do país, porque meu povo conseguiu a lutar pela própria vida, pela nossa mãe, que a Mata Atlântica, somos os guardiões da Mata Atlântica, defendendo elas porque defendemos a nossa própria vida.
If there is still forest in the Atlantic forest, it's because of them, because they defended the land with their lives, with their bodies.
O Brasil nunca respeitou o nosso direito. Agora o presidente fala que existe muita terra para poucos índios. Os povos Guarani, Nanawa, Guarani Mbya, Guarani, Guarani, situam na região do Brasil que tem menos terra demarcado, mesmo sendo uma das maiores população indígena da atualidade.
The Brazil never respect our rights, and the president says that are too many land for a few Indians, but the Guarani people, Nyandewa Guarani, Mbya Guarani, they are in the Brazil. They have less lands compared to other people, and one of the biggest population, indigenous population currently.
O nosso território é constantemente atacado por pessoas, empresas do agronegócio que não querem que os nossos direitos sejam garantidos, que as nossas terras sejam reconhecidas.
Our territory is constantly attacked by companies from agribusiness that don't want our rights recognized, that don't want our lands recognized.
Eles usam muito estratégia para impedir a demarcação, tais como formações milícias, onde seguranças particulares, além promover discriminação nas cidades, nossas crianças nas escolas.
Those companies, they use strategies to stop the demarcation, as organizing private armies, as promoting disrespecting the people and the children, the school, and so on.
O plano do Guarani é recuperar a área desmatada pelo agronegócios, trazendo Mata Atlântico novamente à vida.
The plan of Guarani is to reforest the deforested areas in the Atlantic forest, bring the earth to life again.
Quero agradecer e muito obrigado aos meus parentes que estão aqui também, dando força a um outro. Até.
I would like to thank all my brothers that are here, giving power one to another, giving strength one to another.
Thank you. I think we can start to see why Ecocide as a legal framework is going to be increasingly important for defending territories. And finally, I will pass over to Yxapyry before we move on to some of the other discussions.
Meu nome é Yxapyry, sou de Altamira, estado do Pará, Brasil. Bom dia a todos vocês. Bom dia a todos os parentes e aqui presentes, principalmente as mulheres.
My name is Yxapyry from Altamira City in Pará State, Brazil. And good morning to all here, especially the women.
Eu não sei o nome daquele homem que está ali, mas eu vejo que ele trouxe uma criança com ele. E isso me deixa muito feliz, me faz muito feliz, porque não podemos falar sobre ecocídio, falar sobre mudança climática, falar sobre futuro sem as crianças.
I don't know the name of that sir in back there, but with the kids, and Juma is very, very honored to have the kid in the room, because we cannot speak about ecocide, we cannot speak about what we are discussing here without a kid, without the children.
Quando eu era criança e vivia somente na minha aldeia, eu achava que aquilo era o único lugar do mundo. E não imaginava outras culturas e não imaginava outros mundos, a não ser aquele.
When I was very young in my village, I thought that the world was what I saw in my village. I could not imagine other parts of the world. I could not imagine what were outside my place.
Depois eu descobri que tinha outros mundos, outros povos, outras culturas. E pior ainda foi descobrir o que tinha acontecido com eles.
And then I figure out other people, other cultures, other parts of the world, and even worse, I realized what was going on with them.
Estados Unidos, como exemplo, tinha uma diversidade grande de povos, assim como o Brasil. Canadá, aqui, todos outros lugares também tinham mais presença de povos indígenas. E foram extintos, a maioria, foram assassinados.
United States, for example, there were lots of different indigenous communities, indigenous populations in there, as well as in Europe, and along the time, many of them were extincted, were murdered.
Foi difícil compreender isso no início, porque era a mesma coisa que estava acontecendo. Eu compreendi muito rápido o que estava acontecendo em Altamira, com a chegada da hidrelétrica de Belo Monte. Eu compreendi que o desenvolvimento do extermínio dos povos indígenas havia chegado.
It was hard to figure out about this extinction in the beginning, and in Altamira, because of the installation of Belo Monte Dam, I figure out this fear. I figure out how this model of development destroys us.
Eu era apenas mais uma jovem, eu não era liderança, eu era apenas mais uma jovem cheia de sonho, com muita esperança.
I was just a young woman, full of dreams, full of hope.
Mas Belo Monte rompeu algo de inocente, quis roubar o meu futuro e silenciar os povos.
Belo Monte disrupted me. Belo Monte stolen my future. Belo Monte tried to get what it was from the indigenous community, stolen us.
E é assim que tem acontecido no mundo inteiro. Não só em Altamira, não só com a elétrica de Belo Monte, mas em outras regiões do Brasil, com outros povos e no mundo.
This is what is happening all around the world, all around Brazil.
You understand nothing. E vocês precisam acordar. Vocês precisam acordar agora. Porque nós não temos mais tempo. E quando eu falo de nós, não é de nós, povos indígenas. É de todos nós.
We must wake up. We must wake up now. Because when I tell we don't have time anymore, it's not just about indigenous people. It's about all of us.
O ecocídio, o genocídio, não é praticado somente pelo governo brasileiro. Pelo governo de vocês também. Pelo governo dos outros países.
The ecocide, the people genocide, it's not happening only in Brazil. It's not only committed by the Brazilian government, but from your government as well.
Muitas pessoas falam, como ajudar os povos indígenas? E muitos discutem aqui na Copa como financiar as organizações indígenas para que os povos indígenas continuem protegendo e preservando a floresta. E eu pergunto, e o que vocês vão fazer? A responsabilidade não é só nossa, é de vocês também.
Many people ask how to support the indigenous communities. In the COP, they are discussing how to finance the indigenous communities. But the responsibility, it's about you, it's of all of us. And I ask you, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now?
Vocês precisam saber o que os governantes de vocês estão decidindo, o que eles estão financiando em outros países. Como, por exemplo, Belo Sun é uma empresa canadense que hoje chegou em Altamira para destruir a nossa casa, para destruir os nossos sonhos e roubar o nosso futuro com o minério. Com o minério que não vai ser para os povos indígenas e nem para o povo brasileiro. Vai ser retirado de lá. Mas os impactos, as mortes, é para o povo.
You must know, you must ask what your government is funding abroad. For example, Belo Sun Mining, a Canadian company, arrived in Altamira and want to install a huge gold mining in our river to destroy us. You must know where your government is investing, what the companies of your country is incentivizing in our territory.
Além de cacica, mulher, estudante de medicina, também sou mãe.
Besides chief, women, medical school students, I'm also mother.
E sou a mãe que não posso ficar com os meus filhos, porque tenho medo de assassinarem eles. Não queiram saber o que é isso. O que é ser mãe e não poder cuidar, e não poder proteger, e não poder abraçar os seus filhos.
I'm a mother, but I can't be with my kids because I'm afraid to them to be killed, and you don't like to know what I feel about it. What I feel to not can be with my children, to embrace them.
Agora eu queria estar com eles, na minha aldeia, na minha floresta, mas estou aqui junto com os demais parentes, falando o que há tantos séculos nós, povos indígenas, vem tentando acordar vocês.
Now, I would like to be there in my forest with my kids. But I'm here together with other indigenous communities fighting, showing what we've been said for many, many years.
Minha vida, as nossas vidas, estão sendo roubadas, estão sendo negociadas pelos governos de vocês também. A COP não pode ser somente o centro das negociações, porque é assim que eu vejo. Tem que ser o centro, de fato, das discussões, do envolvimento com os povos, e não somente para alguns.
My life, our life, is being stolen, is being negotiating. The COP can't be the center of negotiation. The COP must be the center of involvement, must involve more the indigenous communities on decisions.
E é por isso que estamos aqui.
That's why we are here.
Para discutir, para contribuir e para dizer que nós existimos e que vamos continuar resistindo por muitos séculos e que não dá para fazer a discussão climática, que no meu entendimento é urgência climática, sem os povos indígenas, sem as crianças. Tem que ser de fato democrática.
We are here to discuss, to contribute, to show that we exist, to show that we resist. There is no way to have this kind of discussion without the indigenous communities, without the children's.
E a última coisa que eu falo para vocês, vocês também são guardiões. Vocês devem ser também guardiões. Essa responsabilidade não é só nossa, é de todos nós. Então, ajude a cuidar não somente da Amazônia, mas do oceano, da Mata Atlântica, de todos os biomas, inclusive o de vocês. Porque nós precisamos disso com urgência.
Last thing I would like to say, the guardians are not just us, you are the guardians as well. It's not just our responsibility, it's your responsibility as well to take care of the forests, the oceans, and all the nature around the world.
Obrigada. E vamos juntos, porque apesar da diversidade de povos, nós só temos um planeta, vivemos na mesma casa.
And
Obrigada.
Thank you very much. Besides all the diversity of people, we are the same human beings, we live in the same earth and the same planet we share together.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So now it's time to talk a little bit about the Guardians and this alliance of Mother Nature's guardians and how we start to think about bridging the world and the destruction and all of that we're hearing today so far, and thinking about how we transform and change so that we can be far better human beings than we have currently been, at least in the dominant Western culture. So I would like to invite Gert, please, to take us through a little bit about the Alliance of Mother Nature's Guardians. There's an English version, on all of your chairs, so please do have a look at it. One for him. Thank you.
Good morning. It's not a chance and it's not a coincidence that we are all seated here. Obviously, you know, when I hear Juma talking about Belo Monte, it reminds me about my own involvement in the supporting the indigenous people. That was a turning point in my life, this Belo Monte Dam. Just give a little, you know, some words about where I come from. You know, I started being involved as a volunteer near Chief Raoni in 1989 when he did his first tour with Sting. And I've been very discreet for about 20 years, you know, accompanying him in the back without appearing in the front. But Belo Monte changed all that, you know, because when I learned that French companies and European companies were involved, it was too much. I already knew the link of the destruction of the Amazon at that point, but I wouldn't want to accept that these companies that are using money from our taxes would do that. I wouldn't accept that. So, you know, Chief Raoni asked me to be his voice, and with Planet Amazon in France for that very important fight. So we created the Planet Amazon, and I began to be, you know, I began to talk as a citizen to what was happening, the connection. And it's about the time where, you know, the word ecocide appeared. And it was horrible to me because when I started to be involved at the age of 18, I was doing that for my own future. And I was hoping that, you know, that 20 years later, we would be in a better way. And in 2012, the connection with our own destruction in every act of consumption was obvious. You know, we were not the children of Mother Earth anymore, we were the children of the ecocide. Because the destruction is, you know, every little, I don't know, act of consumption, we are participating to the ecocide of Mother Earth. So, you know, that became like a point of discussion with Chief Raoni as well. And I remember the moment when we were in this village, he was trying to stop that dam. He was hoping that he would succeed, but he was understanding that it would be difficult this time. In 1989, they stopped the first version of a dam. There was a unity at that time, and Chief Payakan and Chief Raoni and some of the chiefs, they succeeded in having many supporters all over the world, including David Suzuki and many others, and they stopped the dam at the time. But in 2013, we knew that we would need a new kind of alliances. We already knew there was a lot of campaign against the Belo Monte Dam, but we already knew that that will not be enough to stop the dam. And this is the way it happened. It was very sad. But, you know, at the same time, so we began to talk with Chief Raoni, and he said, I would like you to help me to gather my brothers from all over the world, traditional ones mostly, and to open a new path of unity. And I say, yes, of course, I want to do that. And this resonated a lot in my own spirit, because, you know, I just want to share that I have indigenous blood from the Sahara Desert. And my grandfather, I met him when I was 14 only in the Sahara Desert, but he taught me a lot. So I am involved with the indigenous leaders today because of my grandfather, and I know that in this alliance I can be a bridge. Just to make it short, because I saw that I have only 1 minute to conclude my speaking. But I thought it was important to do the connection with the Belmonte Dam. So to make it very short, this alliance was born in 2015 during COP21. And Mindahi was there, and Tom was there already. And it was wonderful because we knew the time was very short, and we have to agree on the document to deliver to the French president and to Ban Ki-moon. So it was the first step, and it was strong. It was something very important. And each one participated with his own heart, his own spirit, and with a very important input. And the most important one was that we cannot accept that Mother Earth can be treated as a commodity. That was something essential in that step. Then Chief Raoni asked that we would meet again in Brazil with more people to strengthen the first version of the document, and we did it. And you have the results of the declaration that we've made there with a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of spirit in that document. And I would be happy after that in a moment to present you a short extract of a film that will explain and show what happened there. It's not the final film, but we really wanted to share it with you. It's the first 22 minutes of the film. So I'm really happy to be in that alliance and being a bridge because I think that we all can reconnect again with Mother Earth. That's possible.
Thank you. There's a lot of bridging going on. It's a theme. And Esmeralda is certainly another bridge. We have a lot of shared passions. And I'd love to hear from you, Esmeralda, about how you bridge, how you take what you're hearing today, how you've been taking what you've known for so many years about Indigenous communities and youth, and how you see Ecocide as an incredible tool that can be utilized in different forums.
Well, when Juma said we have to wake up, I think that's exactly that. Another Indigenous woman told me one day, you live in a nightmare. And I think we have to realize that. We live in a system that has brought us to this point, which is a breaking point. Ecocide, genocide of the Indigenous people. We are just going ahead at full speed, but towards the precipice. And let's remember, like they all said today, that it's 4 defenders of the environment that are killed every week in the world. Brazil, Philippines, in Africa, in Asia, everywhere. So I really see that ecocide and genocide are so linked. And maybe we were not right as activists to always talk about planet. The planet will survive, we know that, because it has been through so much over centuries. And in fact, it will be so much better without us. Huh? We will have rivers, we will have nature probably will flourish again. But we will lose our species, we will lose so many other species around us. So we have this responsibility, and Gert said that we all have it. It's true. Every day what we do, what we consume has an impact. We have to reflect on that. Also, our historical past as European, because we know it all started with colonialism and the way the Europeans went not only to plunder the resources, but to dominate the native people. So we have to recognize that, and I would say it's our duty now to make this alliance, to help the Indigenous peoples who are the guardians, who are, it's so much more than the guardians, because we have to learn from their knowledge, we have to learn from their way of living. It's enough, we have to wake up, absolutely. And I want to make also a special recognition for Indigenous women. because they have an extra burden. They face extra violence. And they are so brave, they are so incredible. And I think as women, we have to support them. We are mothers, we are sisters, we are daughters, and we have to save this common house. So I think it's really important that we make this alliance, that we make bridge, that we talk to everybody, or maybe not everybody, because there are some that we don't want to talk to, but to make it as big as possible, to engage the politicians, the leaders, the citizen. The youth is already there, but we need all of us with them to stop this ecocide and genocide.
Thank you. Okay, my dear Jojo, we literally have 10 minutes, so bring it home.
Wow, it just feels like such a privilege to be in this company. I can't tell you, it's extraordinary. And I think I want to just go a little bit more into ecocide as a law, so that there's an understanding both between the audience and also with these incredibly generous spirits that we have with us on the stage today. So I'm co-founder, along with a Scottish legal pioneer and barrister, Polly Higgins, who was born right here in Glasgow and is no longer with us. She died a couple of years ago and dedicated the last 10 years of her life to this work. We co-founded this public campaign together and is now growing into a kind of central communications hub for what is becoming a rapidly growing global movement with affiliate groups and other interests and politicians and lawyers and grassroots and so many different groups coming together around this demand. And it's a very simple, precise demand, and that is to make ecocide an international crime. And we aim for it to be an international crime for a number of reasons, but I'll just bring a couple out right now. One is that to make ecocide a crime alongside genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity at the International Criminal Court is a way of accessing the criminal justice systems of all the member states of that court. Because if you ratify a crime there, you must also include it in your own national legislation. So it's a very efficient and effective way to change a ground rule in a coherent way across many countries, which is important because a lot of the worst polluters are transnational corporations that can operate in different jurisdictions. It's also because at the ICC, the International Criminal Court, it is the highest court on the planet in our current globally dominating Western system, and it's the only one where there is no level of immunity. In other words, any individual can be prosecuted right up to heads of state. And that, of course, with ecocide, could be very important. The other really key point about aiming for the highest court, aiming for the most serious crimes, the most crimes of most serious concern to humanity as a whole, as those international crimes are described, is it has the potential to begin to rebalance one of the really foundational problems that we're all dealing with here, which is that the globally dominating mindset is deeply disconnected. We have centuries of alienation between humanity and the earth, between the spirit and the body, between the masculine and the feminine, this incredible dualism that runs right through the Western canon. And it means that the legal system right now, as well as the educational system and indeed our systems generally, is hugely anthropocentric, as was mentioned earlier in this panel. But when we put ecocide, or the destruction of nature, of the natural living world, at the same level as genocide, we are making a very clear statement. We are saying that it is as important. Now we know that a company can't go to a government and say, I want a permit to kill 500 people for my new infrastructure project. They can't do that. But they can go and ask for a drilling license, a mining license, a fishing license, activities which at their worst are what are devastating this planet. And so we don't have the same taboo around destroying nature that we do around destroying people. And it's becoming ever, ever clearer from everything that has been said today and from the apocalyptic unfolding we see around us that we need that taboo. And it would be right to have that taboo. And a crime of ecocide is a way to reflect in our dominant legal system a truth that is absolutely recognized and understood at a DNA level by those cultures who are guarding the richest biodiverse areas of this world and spiritually guarding all of it, the indigenous cultures. And that truth is the truth of reciprocity, ultimately. It is the truth that when we damage Mother Earth, there are consequences. You know, we don't make that up in our heads as part of our systems. That's a physical and spiritual fact. So to recognize that in the dominant legal system feels like an absolutely key, symbolic, spiritual, but also very real piece. It also reframes where the criminality lies, and that is hugely important, because right now environmental defenders around the world are portrayed as the criminals, as the ones who are interrupting legitimate activity. Once that activity is placed under the scrutiny, where the key decision makers in those companies could have their personal freedom removed if their decisions threaten severe harm to nature, to the environment, either widespread or long-term. And suddenly, that framing is very different. Suddenly, those environmental defenders are upholding, they're the moral upholders of the law. And the companies who need to really think about what they're doing are the ones who could have that big question mark of, are we actually criminals? And that shifts across so that the criminality sits where it should. And that's a complete, profound reframing. And that is not to say that to put in place a law of ecocide will instantly cure all cases of ecocide. Murder has been a crime for a very long time, and murder is still committed. But we condemn it. It's a normative thing. Murder is a crime, and so we condemn murder. Ecocide must be a crime so that we condemn ecocide. So that it's not just unlawful. It's not just about how many toxins are we allowed to put in this context before we cross a line. It's about this is not just unlawful, but it's bad, it's wrong, and it's condemned. And so it's hugely, deeply important for them. And one last thing that I would like to say that has been very exciting this year, which is that there's a definition, a legal definition, that has now emerged from a panel of 12 lawyers that came from around the world with all different backgrounds, from international criminal law to environmental law to international public law and climate law, and with a range of backgrounds from conventional International Law Commission and former judges to lawyers like Pablo Fajardo, who defended the indigenous and local communities in Ecuador. So a truly eclectic mix of lawyers brought this legal definition together, and it's incredibly simple. Ecocide means unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. And that has been designed as a fifth crime to sit at the International Criminal Court. And while it does also it includes damage to humans and it includes damage to the environment, so it's a key step towards ecocentricity, towards focusing on damage to the environment per se. And one of the beautiful things that happened around that drafting is there was a small group of advisors, of indigenous leaders from around the world that met to put their thoughts and spirit into that drafting alongside a public consultation. And the Mother Earth Delegation also met and in prayer during the actual meetings of that panel as well. So that spirit was really infused in it. And one key aspect entered into that definition that has never before been in international criminal law, and that aspect was cultural. Because one of the things that emerged so closely from those discussions with the wisdom of the original nations was that it is the cultural practices and the spiritual practices of these communities that are part and parcel of that successful guardianship. And so when you look at how the word severe is defined, it includes adverse effects on cultural resources. They still have the word resources in it, it's got a lot of legal precedent, but that word cultural was the only word in the whole definition that had not been strongly present in previous legal precedents. So that's an innovation, and it suddenly brings in this whole dimension that we've been discussing today. So I'll finish with that, but thank you so much, and this has just been the most incredible panel to be on. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we are just at time, but we started late, and I've had a special request and a wink and a nudge from my friend Tom over here, who really would like to say a few more words, if that's okay, to close us out. I wish we could spend the rest of the afternoon in discussion, because as I started with a microphone, this is the most important discussion that we need to be having. Unequivocally so. These conversations need to be happening in those very large tents. They need to be held in sacred spaces. We need to be coming with exceptional intention. We need to be rethinking the way that we are communicating with one another. We need to be bringing different voices to the table and possibly reinventing the table altogether. These are the kinds of conversations that I really hope we all take out of this room and start having with each other, and start setting new kinds of precedences, new ways of having conversations with each other, because we have to be much more inclusive. We have to be thinking about the stakeholders, the people on the ground, the people who are bridging this work, and that's how the right decisions are going to be made, in my personal opinion. Okay, Tom, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those words. Just a few thoughts I want to contribute on how we can strengthen this initiative of securing the fifth crime under the Rome Statute. As indigenous peoples of the world, I'm seeing a movement where we are lifting up our inherent rights to declare our own inherent jurisdiction over our lands and territories. And that means that we have to challenge our colonial governments where we reside. In the United States and Canada, we are moving in that direction. We have our own natural laws, we have our own indigenous laws that we are developing. So at some point in the future, we will have our own tribunal. We will have our own indigenous tribunal of a criminal court to hold these perpetrators of the crimes against Mother Earth accountable and charge them within our jurisdiction. So we have to continue to be aware of that, and how can we also support that movement. I like the words on how indigenous peoples are included within this initiative of Stop Ecocide International's efforts. Indigenous peoples need to be involved with this process. If we do reside in 80% of the biodiversity of the world, we do reside within 80% of the cultural diversity, the richness of that in the world, yes. The other thing too is support this movement of earth jurisprudence, this movement of recognition that Mother Earth has rights. Because if we're going to exercise a crime against the ecosystem, the environment, she has to have rights that are recognized. It goes hand in hand between the ecocide movement and the things that we are working on the global rights of Mother Earth, the global rights of nature. If she doesn't have recognized rights, how can we initiate that there's a crime that's been initiated, eh? So the other thing is the challenge on holding the corporations accountable. And that's something that's very dear to us. You know, we have to develop strategies to go after the individuals of the corporation, and then that opens the door then to go against Enbridge that just got, you know, rights to drill, and now the oil is flowing on line 3 in my backyard. And the other point is the spiritual knowledge that's difficult to quantify. When we say there has been an act of a crime against the spirit of the ecosystem and the environment, I've talked to risk assessment folks, and they say, how do we quantify the damage when it's a spiritual nature? That is a conundrum, because many of the indigenous peoples where I live in our Dakota communities and our Navajo is that it's difficult, almost disrespectful to quantify and to put our knowledge and our relationship to the spirit into a unit to be measured. But there needs to be a way that we can put a value system in the colonial mindset to lift up that there has been an act of a crime against the ecosystem, the environment, and the spirit. My last comment real quick. At the headwaters of the Mississippi River where I live, I'm 30 miles away from the headwaters of the grandfather Mississippi River. It's very young, it's a child, it's birthplace of the headwaters. It's only as wide as where Jojo is sitting to about where that cup of water is. It's only about that wide as it comes out of the Lake Itasca and the spring fed. And this Enbridge Corporation was drilling underneath this young baby portion of the river, and we had indigenous ceremony, and the spiritual leader said this river was speaking. This river, which is still young at this place, is not the grandfather of the outlet of this river way down in the Gulf of Mexico in the state of Louisiana. This is a birth. This is still a baby of a river, the spirit. And the river said, I'm scared. I'm scared. That river spoke to the spiritual spirit, the shaman, said, I'm scared. Like that. And it's scared because they're drilling underneath with the drill. Very patriarchal system, man domination, concepts of dominion. Those are things that we are confronting. That is the basis of the crime. Dominion over Mother Earth in no way different than the dominion that man has over their woman in some of the religious sectors. They say, we have rights over the woman. That's what they say, dominion. Objectification of woman in the same way that there's objectification of Mother Earth and this river, the same thing. How do we express that in the laws of colonialism so that it has weight as we put our case together of a crime against an ecocide crime? Those are things that we want to exchange and have mechanism to where that is recognized. This young birth of a river saying, I'm scared. And the pounding and the jamming of that, dragging of that pipe, and they ram it through underneath the river, about 60 feet underneath. The vibration in that river is crying, I'm scared. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to, thank our panel for being here, and I wish we, again, had more time. We're now going to be, you're looking at me like I shouldn't say that. We're now going to be hearing from Chief Nanawa. Yes?
Yeah, I'm just aware that I don't know if all our panelists are able to stay, so this might be a moment if there is anybody that needs to go. I realise we've overrun a bit, so just being aware of that.
but to thank each and every one of you for for bringing your presence here with us and for your words. And I hope you all felt held and heard and listened to, because that is really the intention of this conversation today. We have so much to learn, all of us, and we are listening, and I hope we are acting, and I hope we can use some of the bridging work that we're all contributing to help shift and be much more thoughtful, kind, and supporting you to do the work that you're doing on the land that you're doing it. And thank you. So we are moving to Chief Nanawa, who will be reading some of the Alliance of the Mother Nature's Guardians text for us. If you need to leave, you can feel free to go. If you would like to stay, please do. And then there will be a film.
So just a little bit of explanation. You have on your seats the English version of the declaration, of which Chief Nanawa is going to honour us with some extracts now. So we won't be requiring the translation of that in the audio, but you have it in front of you in the English. So this will give you a sense from Chief Nanawa of the content of the declaration.
Would you like us to stay up here, or would you like us to sit down in the front? Happy to stay? Okay, we'll stay. Yeah? Okay. Do you need to leave? Or are you fine? Everyone seems fine.
Bom, muito obrigado mais uma vez. E eu vou fazer uma leitura aqui da introdução e alguns pontos, como já foi mencionado. Está tudo escrito, eu só queria acrescentar, dizer que
Hello, everybody. Just to say that I will read the introduction, and I'm aware that you already have a copy on your seat. So please follow the introduction, and we will not translate it, and he will read some scripts of it.
Só quero dizer que esse escrito foi feito com sentimento muito profundo dos povos que participaram da grande assembleia, né?
This writing was done with a very thoughtful thinking and from all the indigenous peoples who participated in the discussion.
Isso aqui você não vai fazer tradução, não?
Não.
Então, Declaração da Aliança dos Guardiões da Mãe Terra. Um apelo global aos Estados e à humanidade para a preservação da vida no planeta e das gerações futuras. Em 28 de novembro de 2015, em Paris, representantes de povos indígenas, de personalidade e organizações não governamentais do mundo reuniram-se em Assembleia Constituinte da Aliança dos Guardiões da Mãe Natureza e relembraram que os povos indígenas são mais de 370 milhões de pessoas distribuídas em mais de 70 países dos 5 continentes, que eles representam mais de 5 mil povos diferentes e falam mais de 4 mil idiomas. No final da Assembleia Constituinte, a Aliança aprovou 17 propostas cujo conteúdo encontra-se no anexo 1 desse livro. O representante dos povos indígenas e de seus aliados, convidado por líderes indígenas do Brasil, reuniram-se novamente em Brasília do dia 11 a 16 de outubro de 2017, com o objetivo de consolidar os princípios estabelecidos nas 17 propostas. Esta segunda Assembleia deseja ser a expressão dos povos indígenas e de seus aliados para instar a humanidade a tomar uma medida indispensáveis de proteção dos caráteres sacros da água, do ar, da terra, do fogo e do ciclo da vida. Considerando que a mudança passa necessariamente pelos respeito dos direitos à natureza e dos direitos da Mãe Terra e pela adoção de regras que reconhecem a igualdade de direitos dos ecossistemas a existirem, a prosperarem e a se regenerarem. Considerando que é necessário transformar o nosso mundo de encarar a natureza e passar a considerá-la não como propriedade, mas como matérias de lei, considerando que o reconhecimento desses direitos só poderá ocorrer se houver mudança de paradigma, particularmente se houver contestação da concepção antropocêntrica piramidal do mundo. Eles adotaram, por isso, a seguinte declaração destinada a alertar os estados e a humanidade. Nós, guardiões e filhos da Mãe Terra, povos indígenas e parceiros aliados, realizamos nossa segunda assembleia. Nossas profecias, nossa sabedoria, nossas análises nos permitiram ver que a vida da Mãe Terra está em perigo e que chegou a hora de uma grande transformação. Os povos indígenas sempre cuidaram da Mãe Terra e da humanidade. Esperamos que isso continue assim graças ao apoio dos povos do mundo. As profecias indígenas nos dão a responsabilidade de dizer ao mundo que devemos viver em paz, uns com os outros e com a Mãe Terra, para garantir a harmonia no seio de suas leis naturais e da criação. Queremos soluções concretas que reconheçam os direitos dos povos indígenas. Queremos que os líderes mundiais dos estados, das nações e da sociedade civil comecem a pensar em abandonar progressivamente o sistema jurídico herdado da era colonial e substituí-la por outros que considerem a natureza, a Mãe Terra, de maneira global. Como uma entidade adotada de direitos fundamentais, devemos evoluir para um paradigma baseado no pensamento e na filosofia indígena que dá direitos iguais à natureza, que respeite a inter-relação entre todas as formas de vida e a preservação da Mãe Terra. Não há separação entre os direitos dos povos indígenas e o direito da Mãe Terra. Por consequente, pedimos a todos os estados e à humanidade para... Gostaria de ler esse ponto 1. Tomar providência para incentivar as Nações Unidas e os governos nacionais e locais, inclusive, a estrutura de governança dos povos indígenas, a adotarem a Declaração Universal dos Direitos da Mãe Terra, proclamada por 35 mil pessoas, representantes e delegados na Conferência dos Povos sobre a Mudança do Clima e Direitos da Mãe Terra, em Cochabamba, na Bolívia, em abril do ano de 2010. Esta declaração é um apelo que estabelece princípios fundamentais e universais que têm objetivos alcançar o reconhecimento dos direitos da Mãe Terra e da totalidade de seres vivos, de lançar as bases de uma cultura de respeito pelo viver bem, ou bem viver, e de unir todos os habitantes da Terra em torno de um interesse comum e universal. A Mãe Terra é viva. Ela é o nosso lar comum. Devemos respeitá-la, cuidar dela para o bem-estar das gerações futuras. Também gostaria de ler o quinto, artigo 5º. Agir...
Just to say he's reading number 5 now.
Agir para melhorar o Acordo Climático de Paris de 2015, relevante aos direitos e às necessidades dos povos indígenas. A principal preocupação dos povos indígenas e de seus aliados é que esse acordo, que é insuficiente, ele eleve suas ambições, que ele seja reforçado em medidas concretas para evitar a aceitação das atuais projeções de redução voluntária de emissões de carbono, que acabarão por conduzir, finalmente, há um aumento médio de temperatura global de mais de 3 a 4 graus Celsius dos povos indígenas, redução de suas comunidades, e desenvolverão estratégia conforme a seguinte análise. O Acordo de Paris é um acordo comercial cujo objetivo é de privatizar, de transformar em mercadoria, de vender crédito de compensação para os oceanos, para as florestas e para as terras agrícolas e permitir, assim, aos maiores emissores de gases de efeito estufa, não somente de adquirir uma maneira de escapar às exigências da redução das emissões de gases de efeito estufa, mas também de tirar lucros disso. O Acordo de Paris propõe uma transmissão energética baseada em outras energias poluidoras e destrutivas, entre as quais o furamento hidráulico, a energia nuclear, o agrocombustível, o sequestro de carbono e outra tecnológica, que representa sérios riscos ecológicos, visto que o texto operacional do acordo não menciona os direitos humanos e os direitos dos povos indígenas. É necessário trabalhar com o Estado na relação de protocolos destinado a incluir os conhecimentos tradicionais nas reuniões de convenção quadro das Nações Unidas sobre mudanças climáticas. Finalmente, o acordo também não lida com as obrigações de reparações do Norte para com o Sul, nem com o pedido de compensação para a reparação e para a estruturação de terras perdidas ou degradadas. Nos territórios e nos lares dos povos do Sul e do Norte, acreditamos que as mudanças climáticas não são apenas uma questão ambiental, são o resultado de um sistema econômico injusto baseado no crescimento sem fim, que concentra a riqueza nas mãos de poucos, que explora a natureza até o seu colapso. Também o 11.
And also I'm reading number 11 to finalize.
Santuarizar urgentemente a totalidade das áreas de floresta primária no planeta, que estão tradicionalmente sob os cuidados dos povos indígenas, visto que as Nações Unidas já reconheceu que a presença deles é um fator de garantia da não deteriorização destes ambientes inestimáveis. Os povos indígenas devem uma vez por todas possuir e manter essas terras, das quais não podem ser expulsos. A aliança destaca a necessidade de criar o mais rápido possível, com o apoio dos Estados, o Estatuto Jurídico Internacional para proteger eficazmente esses ecossistemas vitais, contra qualquer forma de proteção, de depredação. Esses ecossistemas não devem ser utilizados no contexto de um mercado de carbono que quantifica e transforma uma terra em mercadoria, nem servir de pagamento para serviços ecossistêmicos, para o comércio de carbono, para as compensações de carbono, para a tarificações de carbono, para o mecanismo de redução de emissões decorrente do desmatamento e da degradação florestal, para o mecanismo de desenvolvimento limpo, ou para o mecanismo de compensação da biodiversidade e de financiarização da natureza, transformando em parte a venda nos mercados financeiros. Então, eu queria compartilhar com esses artigos, que são artigos fundamentais, para poder realmente encontrar uma solução concreta para mudar a situação climática do planeta.
I wanted to make sure and emphasize those articles because we believe those are the most important ones, and we really want your commitment to take those into consideration, because that's how we believe it's a way forward to tackling climate emergency.
Thank you again for being here with us today. I think now we're going to be saying goodbye to our online audience because we will have a film that is not yet released. So sorry, you'll have to wait. And I'm sure Gert can tell us about when that will be released. Do you want to introduce it maybe just so that people can hear online? Yeah, and then we will all move off the stage. Yeah. Do you want to introduce it though? And tell people online where they can find it soon.
Yeah, the film is a non-profit film that was made mostly during the Great Assembly in 2017. So, you know, we did a crowdfunding to organize this assembly. So we owe it to the donors, but we owe it to the world for them to understand. So the film will be probably released in March 2022. And just what I wanted to say, it's this film is constructed as a bridge. I told about bridges because as for now, we are, you know, there's a river between us and the indigenous people are on one side and we are on the other side. So we have to cross the bridges and we have to work together. So sorry for the people online. You'll have to wait until March next year, but I think it's worth it. Yes, very important. The declaration of the Alliance, you can find it on our website, allianceofguardians.org, allianceofguardians.org. You can download it and share it. Thank you so much.
So thank you to the online audience for joining us. We hope you circulate these messages far and wide and join us in this movement.